Welcome to another Learner's Mindset discussion. In our last session with Dr. Tilisa Thibodeaux, we were exploring the notion of her move towards a learner's mindset. In this session, which I'm going to refer to as part two, we're going to be talking about some of the additional benefits of learner's mindset, but also what are some of the challenges? This different way of thinking, this way of exploring the world and seeing challenges as opportunities is wonderful to talk about, but what's really going on? So, this is where we're going to go today. So, I want to thank you again for our last session and being willing to be somewhat vulnerable and say, hey, this is the way that it was, and this is the journey, and this is where I'm at. And so here we are again, the learner's mindset. If you could just sort of recap, what does it mean to you? Where are you at? What do you really see as sort of the best benefit? And then we'll jump in and talk about some of the challenges. Go ahead.
I see the learner's mindset, and we've talked about this before, as the intrinsic capacity to learn, to really grab onto that. And we talked about this before, that inquisitive perspective, introspection. I hold on to those words opportunity so dearly because I'm constantly being, things are being, for lack of better words, thrown at me. And I'm learning how to turn a challenge into an opportunity on the daily. And that's something you have to work at. I had an opportunity come up on Monday, and I thought, oh, I don't really know how to do this. I've not done one of these before. It's a pretty massive grant. And I thought, oh, what am I going to do here? And I had to just kind of recap how the learner's mindset works for me. I look at it like this. I can make a choice to go, oh, I can't do that. I need to keep doing what I've always been doing and kind of default back to that easy method of, oh yeah, do what's comfortable. Or I can decide to hook on here, be honest with myself, be real about my, qualities, characteristics, things I can add to this, whether that's helping or not helping. I can take ownership of that and go with this and learn something from it. And I think that to me encapsulates a good example of what learner's mindset is really about. You're always having that internal struggle and that internal, debate with yourself. Should I do this? Should I not? Should I take the risk? Should I not? But I always look at myself as if I'm in the box and I'm staying complacent and I'm comfortable and I'm happy there. But if I if I step outside that box, I become engaged with what's going on around me. I learn how to be flexible. I learn how to collaborate and involve other people in that process. And then I also learn something about myself. And it all goes back to taking ownership and really being able to, I think, have a voice in some things that make me uncomfortable, or make some choices around what it means to impact others around me or my world. And most importantly, it all goes back to COVID, in my opinion. I can learn to if you will, take experiences, make them authentic, make them real, and really impact a larger community, myself, all the above. So when I think about the learner's mindset, I think about opportunity, number one, and opportunity through experience, opportunity through unknown experience, opportunity through discomfort. I could go on and on here. That's really what I think about when I think of the learner's mindset.
Okay, so embracing opportunity, embracing the challenges, facing what life gives you head on, and seeing it as an opportunity for growth. It really fits into the definition of what we're doing. But if you do have that notion in your head that what am I going to learn today, or what's going to happen, and what am I going to accomplish, well, then that's what you do, and it does change your perspective, and every day is a day filled with opportunity, and that's wonderful. But those days do have challenges, don't they? So, and what are some of the challenges that you found with yourself, and maybe interacting with others, and moving towards that learner's mindset thinking personally? And then after, maybe we'll explore this idea of what are some of the challenges that you found in helping others adopt a learner's mindset. So let's talk about the personal challenges, and then we'll take a look at how those challenges are met by others.
One of the biggest challenges is embracing change. I think about all the opportunities that have come my way that I've had to learn to gauge, how do I feel about this change? How do I feel about this opportunity? is this going to be big enough, broad enough? Is this going to be something I should invest my time and energy into? And I have to think through those things before I just jump in sometimes. And I think what that means is I have to be real with myself. I have to be very careful and understand, what am I good at? What am I not so good at? How can I leverage that opportunity to work well with others? How can I see in other people who are working on something with me, what they're good at, what I'm maybe not so good at, and work with that to be able to bring about change or bring about innovation. So I think being real talk with yourself, really important. Just being able to gauge where you're at and what you feel about something. That's a challenge. I don't always want to own what I think and feel. If I want to be real vulnerable here, and by that, it brings me to that place of discomfort. And you might say, well, what type of discomfort does that bring? Well, I have to realize this is something new. I'm going to have to commit time and energy to it. Going back to that grant, this is what I'm thinking. This is real time. This just happened this week. I'm going to have to be able to collaborate with another person who, what I foresee of this person may or may not be helpful. I'm not sure. I have to gauge all the pieces. I have to look, and this goes back to learner's mindset. You have to look at the big picture of everything. You have to consistently look what's right in front of you. You have to shift and look at it this way. I like to use the Rubik's Cube. You look at this way, flip it this way, see what's right in front of you. You like the coffee mug, here or here. See what's 30,000 foot in front of you. See what's 100,000 foot ahead. You have to take in all aspects of the whole big picture. And that is also a challenge. So to me, having that real talk and embracing that change and taking ownership is tough, because I need to foresee the challenges ahead of me before I can actually do that, whatever project I'm working on. Right. And so I have to internalize things and really think them through. I'm a planner, I'm an organizer, and I would say I'm a good manager, and you think about those things and you think, but that's not what it takes to lead. Right. So I have to actually get outside of what I'm good at and step outside the box. And what does it mean to lead? And I have to ask myself, this is where I struggle. Do I want to lead this project? Do I want to follow on this project? Do I want to manage things on this project? And you have to be able to realize where you're at. That goes back to real talk. And that real talk is gauging where I'm at. What am I willing to own? Am I willing to let someone else take the lead on something that I may not be so good at? Right. But then I think back and I go, you know what? Look at all the pots and all the irons I have in the fire. And I have to make the best decision. But that does require taking in that big picture perspective from close up, far away. Look at the Rubik's Cube this way, look at it this way. So I'm constantly twisting and turning things to even poking holes in all the things that I do, thinking, where's the catch here? This seems too easy, and so I ask myself questions all the time. What's the stake going to get me at? I'm always asking these questions of myself, and that is part of learning how to be flexible. So being real with myself, taking ownership of something I may or may not be so good at, but also being flexible. Flexibility is a challenge. And I'm not even speaking of working with other people yet. I'm actually talking about working within my own brain, right? Being flexible enough to adapt, to change, to see that my way is not always the best way, for sure. And that was one big, huge struggle I had in transitioning to a learner's mindset. I had to, when they talk about freedom to learn, you used to ask me, Dr. H, what do you mean by that? Well, to me, it's breaking down the walls of what you thought you knew, what you thought you could do, and being open and receptive enough to taking in other perspectives, collaborating with others, finding a way to allow what you believe and your thoughts to kind of enmesh with others, and building a pathway that's new and different. May not be innovative, but it's a way for you to be able to work with others and see for yourself, you getting past that challenge or that barrier. So those are just a few of the internal, I think, struggles I've had. They're not very specific, but we could always relate these to something specific. I could talk about the new job I'm in all day long and how I have to use this in my deanship every single day and working with others. But what I've become really good at, and I think this is the secret, is here's an idea. How can we all contribute to this idea? And I'm really, really good at, I think, listening to others and finding a way to make everyone's idea work, and then adjusting that, tweaking that. So one size fits all or one and done That never happens. We're always shifting, tweaking, modifying, molding, not just in Rio Honors College, but in our curriculum and the things that we do in the academy, everywhere. Nothing ever stays the same or complacent. It just doesn't happen. It's all fluid. And if I didn't have the learner's mindset to be able to be fluid enough to adapt to change and be flexible and take ownership and say, yes, I'm wrong, or yes, I need to tweak this a bit, I don't think I would be in this role today. And that's a continuation of what I said in the last video.
Well, you've said a fair amount, and when you started, you mentioned change. You have to be comfortable with change and innovation. And initially, I thought, well, just being comfortable with change itself. But you went on to explain that, well, no, change is always there. It's always part of life, and it's really recognizing where you're at with what's happening. And also, because of experience and because of your learner's mindset, you've got the capacity to sort of explore all the variables, and you take a look at things almost from a cost benefit analysis. And because you look at all these events of change as an opportunity, you start to weigh out, what do I do, what do others do? And so it's an ongoing evaluation and perhaps an assessment or an analysis of what contribution do I make? What contributions do others make? This is an interesting thing. Whenever you're talking about change and the learner's mindset, inevitably you're always referring to other people because you actually don't do this alone,
Yep.
right? And if you if you try to do change or deal with an administrative position or a position of leadership alone, you are alone in the sense that you become a bit of an authoritarian. What you're talking about is true collaboration, true investigation, true analysis, true growth, because you're always looking to take advantage of an opportunity, and change presents that opportunity, the innovation presents that opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's because of your experience, you're able to sort of assess what's going to happen. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because in a discussion I had with Dr. Bedard the other day that actually I just posted, in another learner's mindset discussion, we were talking about personal professional development and taking ownership of the learning, as opposed to dependency professional development, where you depend on others to train you. And one of the biggest takeaways from that conversation was that you have to be willing to put enough time and effort into your own professional development to be able to know enough about what it is that you're doing to be able to ask others questions that can help you. So personal professional development is not done in isolation. You do it with others. You rely on others. You reach out to others. You help them, they help you. You come together, and everybody grows. And so this is what I'm hearing. Now, you've gone through this journey and you've developed the capacity to do this cost benefit analysis. And there are times when something comes up and you go, oh, wow, okay, I need to move in that direction. Probably part of you is going, that's going to be a lot of work. You know ahead of time that that's going to be a lot of work. But that's part of the process, isn't it? Sometimes true effective change has to be over an extended duration, right?
Yep.
Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
How can you share this with others? Because you're saying embrace the change, embrace the discomfort, embrace the challenge, bring people in, be vulnerable. Wow, there's a lot going on there. How can you help others sort of adopt this attitude, this learner's mindset, and yet deal with all those challenges? What are some of your thoughts on that?
The best thing I can do is model it for other people, right? So I can let them see that we don't just affect change overnight like that. If we want a true, impactful, really good change, we want to get multiple stakeholders input. Who's this change affecting? How is this going to, how do we envision this to work out? And did it actually happen that way over time? But change does take time. And for some people, they want, like you said, train. Well, I just got to teach them the book. Well, why do you need to teach them the book if they can read the book? And so I asked that to somebody yesterday. But anyway, so my point is it takes time. And the best thing you can do really is work collaboratively, give each other feedback. And this is one thing that I've grown on my team. We're grassroots. We are a bottom up. We're not a top down type of team where I tell and train. And I actually give people enough autonomy over what they're doing so that they can then create their own creative pathway, because when they're doing what they enjoy, the hard work is not so much hard work. It's turning that into their passion. And so when people ask me, some of my employees, well, what do I need to do next? You need to grow your path. What are you interested in? What are you passionate about? Well, grow that program, right? And so I think that, if you want to tie this back into effecting change, it's you have to deal with mindsets of others. So this kind of bridges into when you asked about relating to other people. Your mindset is not going to fit everyone, right? And you may have to have multiple conversations with someone. You may have to model it till you're blue in the face. You may have to write it out like I've done. I've written out everything, big, hairy, audacious goals, or why, how, what's it, written it all out, share it with everyone. I have not had one single presentation or slide deck on this campus with my people or anywhere else or in high schools anywhere that does not include my big, hairy, audacious goal, my why, my how, my what statements, and how we're going to get there, right? And so what I'm trying to do is invite people into my world, invite people to collaborate with me, invite people to see that this is not a one size fits all approach. And the best way to do that is to communicate. And when you think you've communicated well enough, do it some more. I'm learning some hard lessons this year, but in good ways. I mean, because even when I learn a hard lesson, I turn that into my opportunity to grow and figure out what I'm passionate about. And going back to influencer, learn to love what I hate. I don't like writing big grants, but I better learn to love it in my role. And I'm getting there. We're baby steps. And it's really just taking an effort of people that are willing to work with my mindset, right? So I have to not just think of working with others' mindset, but working with my own. And who am I presenting myself to be? Am I collaborative? Am I approachable? Am I flexible enough? Am I giving other people the opportunity to get in and get their voice heard, and vice versa? Change doesn't happen without people. Change doesn't happen without flexibility, adaptability, and being able to learn how to like something you hate.
It's interesting. I think of Cotter's work in terms of communication. Communicate, communicate 10 times more or much more, right? You're sharing a challenging notion that this takes a lot of time. This takes a lot of modeling. How much is enough? And what happens if you run into students, employees, colleagues who are residing a little bit more towards that growth mindset, and there's sort of that perpetual cynicism or skepticism, and they don't see the opportunity because they've seen it before? Or how long do you spend trying to bring those people along, or at some point do you not keep on trying with them or move on to others? What are some of your thoughts on that? Because you're modeling these activities, you're inviting people in, but what if they don't want to join you? What do you do then?
So that's an interesting question. I've had that scenario happen this year. I've had the opposite happen. And what I've learned is there's more power in like-minded people. And it doesn't necessarily mean they have to agree with you on everything. This means they're like-minded and they're go-getters and they care and they want to know about what you're doing and they want to figure out a way to mesh what you're doing with what they're doing. And that to me is like a powerhouse connection. People who are naysayers and want to be stuck in their box, I listen, I learn, I observe. I don't want to spend countless effort in people who are just resistant to change entirely, that it's going to take me more work to ever get them to see, oh, there's this thing called learner's mindset. There's this thing called actually step aside from my own belief systems and see the world in a different view. I don't spend a ton of time trying to convince people to come over into my world. I look for people who are already there. And this is something I've said to my own, boss. I've said, I've found who my people are. And by that, I mean people who are willing to take the extra step, people who work, people who are passionate, who care, who go after things. And that's my band. That's my team. And let me tell you, there are a lot less of those than you think. I may have 7 or 8 people this past year that I think, ooh, we're going to build bridges and we're going to climb mountains together. And we are doing these things already. But as far as those other people, I'd like to see what kind of bridges and mountains they've climbed. I can guarantee they've probably gone up a hill and fell down into the valley. My opinion. But I just don't have time to spend on people that are sucking energy from me as opposed to being additive to me. Does that make sense? Is that rude?
No, I think it's very practical and pragmatic. And right now, you're relating this to your position in being the dean of the honors college and working with people. And you also have the privilege of working with some of the best students. And so most of the students that you're working with are highly motivated, they're engaged. Even though they might not necessarily know they're living in the learner's mindset, they've grown up that way, exploring opportunities and going for it. So remember, the learner's mindset is that natural curiosity, that natural inquisitivistic nature that most people have that we often have to reignite. And I would suggest that a lot of these kids, unless they're too hung up on grades, are the ones who are willing to explore and experiment. So you're benefiting from that. I'm thinking about the grad program I'm teaching in, and I work with a lot of business people as well as teachers and a variety of other students in the program. And it can take a long time for those people to come along. And I know in the last, the move to the applied digital learning program and the implementation of assessment of learning, I'm starting to see a move towards the learner's mindset and people taking ownership and really engaging the learner's mindset much more rapidly than before because of the environment we've created. But there still are those people, those students, those people who just aren't willing to do the work. Um, you're not saying you're writing them off. You're still extending the bridge. You're still going to work
Yes.
with them. You're still inviting them in. You're modeling it. You're being encouraging. But there comes a point where you spend more time with those who are engaging than those who don't. You can make
Yes.
those other people successful, and they'll be part of a team, but they might not necessarily be on the first line. They might be on the second or third line, so to speak. So you're not
Yep.
saying that you're excluding them. It's really
Correct.
a matter of finding their position on the bus, so to speak. If we think of
Yes,
good to great,
exactly.
right? They're
Yes.
not taking turns driving the bus. They're in a support role. So, and the perpetual modeling, at times they'll come over, right? Um, Now, I've seen and you've seen this too in the grad program, it can take sometimes one, two, or three courses, maybe even four courses for a student to move in that direction. Now we're seeing it in one and two, and sometimes three. In more of a institutional or corporate setting, how long are you seeing people sort of hanging on to that fixed mindset? How long does it take people? So what I'm asking is, do we need to sort of expect it could take even longer if you don't have the same type of a controlled environment like you would in a graduate program?
It's quite possible. I think that the leadership sows the seeds. With my people, I've seen a tremendous move. And I've had to deal with some situations that were a little uncomfortable for folks. We don't want to change. We don't want to do that. But a lot of times, if I'm also walking the walk and I'm listening to their ideas and tweaking and shifting some things myself and modeling in that way, they're more likely to shift and tweak some things themselves. I've noticed this kind of reciprocating pattern, if you will. Now, people outside of my immediate vicinity and where I work, and I'm talking about the greater community here at Lamar or whomever, sometimes it's a touch and go. You'll see people, you'll work with people on a project, and you may or may not have a lot of, conversation or relationship, or it just depends on what the project is. And so I really, I step back and I gauge, I observe just as much as I do to myself. I kind of gauge and observe others and see what are they good at and how can I draw that out in them. In the same respect, though, I think about people really do need to care. And I'm specifically talking about the when we were in the DLL program together, now ADL. If you start the program and you're not putting in that, I guess, that care into what you're doing, or that ownership, and taking, really taking the program to heart, then you're going to just be settling, in my opinion, for a mediocre grade, mediocrity, if you will. Get through it and get my stamp and get out. But if you're going to spend a year to 2 years of your life in a program that could change your life, could potentially change your life, and you see this in the first course, why wouldn't you invest in yourself that way? And so this is a note to everyone in the program that I'm not teaching in, but help co-construct. Definitely take that step to care, really care and invest in what you're doing. If I didn't care and invest in what I was doing before I came into this role, I don't think that they would have given, my upper administration would have given me the trust that they do. they allow me in the new culture of learning operate freely within a bound learning environment. I think it's in the one of the last chapters in the last page, chapter 12, maybe after that. But they've given me freedom, flexibility, and an opportunity to grow my passion, my direction, and they're excited. They're excited because they see that I'm excited. And it's not because I'm hurrying up and checking off the boxes as a dean in this position. Okay. It's not because I'm in a hurry to get a grade or seek approval from my administrator. It's because there's a passion, because I care. There's a spark. I've ignited some things that I think that were sitting there and they were talking about but never got to. It's because I took a special interest. I'm inquisitive. I'm looking for a better way all the time. When we get good, we're going to get to great. When we get to great, we're going to go after excellent. It's never going to stop, right? And that's because there's a care behind it. There's a conviction behind it that I want to do what's best for these students. And I want these students to get an opportunity and an experience out of this that they would get nowhere else. But if I didn't sow those seeds, if I didn't care, and if my team stepped back and they didn't care and they didn't sow those seeds, then our students would be doing exactly what you do when you think you're coming to college. I'm going to get trained on this book. I'm going to learn how to read this book and follow these instructions and then go off and be, a psychiatrist. Well, there's more to it than that. You have to care no matter where you're at, what profession you're in, and would you want that for your own, right? And so, when I step back and I look at the big picture, there is a compassion behind that. More than just passion, there's compassion behind it. And so I think if you intertwine the two and you mix that up, and then you find a way to lead your team and get very, very clear about your goals, where you're going, your outcomes, and what you're going to do to get there, and how can people contribute to that. I think that, and when people feel heard, when you care about people, it's not just about the job. It's not just about the checklist and what I need to do on the daily. I'm learning to automate those things. I've automate those things, get them done in an hour, what I needed to get done in that day. And the rest is about relationship building, people building. I interview every single Texas Academy student that gets to that point. It's the last, stop. And I stop my whole day and I spend an hour to an hour and a half with those parents and that student so that they can, get their questions answered, build a relationship with me, and let them see, most importantly, that I care. Now, if you're not investing in a program, and if I didn't invest in my programs and didn't show that I cared, if I didn't invest in my own job, my own programs, that can be readily seen, and that doesn't look good. So, message to all here.
So, if I may summarize, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but so when you talk about modeling, your capacity of modeling comes from your personal investment in yourself. And you have to invest in yourself and you have to grow. You have to adopt this learner's mindset and have to have the capacity to grow in order to be able to invest with others. Mm-hmm. And when you're modeling and working with others, it comes down to passion and compassion, tempered with reality. And it's about listening. It's about relationship building. And it's actually treating people in an open, welcoming, inviting way, respecting who they are, listening to them, inviting them in, and letting them know that your role and your position and the program you're in is designed to help them, help their kids, their students, or these students grow and become the best individual they can be. And so there's this notion that the head won't go where the heart hasn't been. So you're engaging the heart, you're engaging the passion and the compassion, but you're also doing your due diligence in the sense of being really good. And it starts with that investment in yourself. Now, does that sum it up? I think I got it.
Yeah. I was thinking something when you said the head won't go where the heart hasn't been. The head won't go where the heart isn't in.
Oh, wow.
Said that, and I thought, I thought that right.
Oh, hey, we have another title for a book here.
Yep.
Now, one last question, and then we should wrap up. And I really appreciate your time on this. And you've seen the challenge that I'm going to relay here in the DLL and the ADL program, and this has happened in other programs I've been in other courses. You have students who come in at a different state or a different place, or they were in the program. Anyways, people come in and they haven't had the benefit of building that investment in themselves from the beginning, and they kind of get dropped in a little bit further ahead. And
Mm.
this idea, this learner's mindset, is often so foreign, right? And they kind of have the attitude, just tell me what I need to do. Give me the checklist. How do you help people to embrace something that can be potentially formed, that they haven't had the time to slowly build that process? What would you recommend as one of the first couple of things that you need to do with those people who are sort of dropped in unsuspectingly, and they're dealing with your delusional optimism of a learner's mindset, which is what I refer to, right? I'm not saying yours is, mine is. What are your thoughts on that before we wrap up?
So it's a matter of resistance. Are you going to resist what could potentially help you, a new avenue? Or are you going to jump right in and plant your feet on the floor and say, I'm going to do this? So to me, what's it worth more? Going after this delusional optimist and this notion of, oh, hey, I might be able to work with people that I'm unfamiliar with, or it's something different. Or do I want to sit and stew in the resistance? Because if I'm going to sit and stew in the resistance side, to me, that's not just a one offer. You've probably done that in situations before. Um, and I look for qualities and characteristics of people being flexible and adaptable in my role as dean, and students. I look for that. And I think, are we cultivating the type of student that we want to then go out into the workforce and be able to change the world one learner at a time, to be able to go out and innovate and do something that's going to be a catalyst for change, right? And so I step back and I think, would you rather spend your time resisting this or going with something new that could open up your world and change you in a different way? That could allow you the skill you need to become collaborative, marketable, whatever skill you want to name it, would allow you to change. Why spend so much time sitting in resistance when you could just open your ears and listen and step over the threshold that makes you uncomfortable? Sure, stay in the box, but if you want the last seat on the bus, stay there. If you want the first seat on the bus and you want to be the driver, step into it. It necessitates a shift in self and a shift in being able to relate with others. Bottom line, jump in.
Well, Tilisa, I can't summarize that any better. I want to thank you for sharing this with me and with our audience. And I have to admit, I'm a little bit motivated here to write a blog post, and you've given me some ideas, and you've answered a challenge that I've been facing with some of these students get dropped in at a later date. Mm-hmm. And I'm probably going to use this clip and share that with them. So I want to thank you so much for sharing this with me. And I'm excited to hear where you're going to be going next. And as a personal friend of mine, I do hear quite often what's happening next. And so once again, thank you. Thank you for helping us understand that the learner's mindset is a change in the way we think. It's a change in the way that we approach learning. It's a change in the way we think about learning, a change in the way that we approach learning. And you have to take into account that learning environment. But it's also about that personal growth, stepping into it, making it meaningful, and making it your own. And that's exciting. And you've not only modeled it for me and your environment, but I see it in your explanation. And I'm excited to hear you talk about this. Thank you.